So we're here in this little aspen cluster that's right off the road. And as you guys can see, it's a really thick cluster of aspen trees. There's a lot of chaos happening. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my telephoto and I'm zooming in on specific sections or clusters to try and isolate them to find an interesting composition. So typically what I'm looking for is either two aspen trees next to each other and one in between it in the middle that I can kind of zoom in and create an isolated photo, or just clusters of 4 or 5 of them that have kind of an interesting shape, or they create some kind of interesting composition. So one of the things I decided to do maybe 2 years ago was start releasing images in galleries instead of just as individual images. So when I go somewhere, instead of just focusing on capturing just that one shot, post-processing it really fast and throwing it up on Instagram, instead now I focus on capturing a bunch of images, a cluster of images, a gallery, usually of a particular season or a particular area or location or type of terrain. There's a couple different reasons for doing that. There's a few other photographers that have been doing this for a while. David Thompson and Mark Adamus do this, and they'll typically disappear for 2 or 3 months, and then they come back with just this amazing cluster of images. And after a while, I got to the point where I actually really preferred this. I thought it was a lot more interesting than just one image by itself. Normally, as a photographer, I'm sure all of you can relate to this, when you go out to a location, there's hundreds if not thousands of images that you capture of a place that just don't quite make the cut. So I personally have gone on 2-3 week trips to Death Valley National Park and come back super frustrated because I really only ended up using 3 to 6 maybe images from that entire 3-week trip, because those were the 3 to 6 best images that I knew I could post on Instagram and would get lots of attention. But oftentimes when you go to these places, there's lots of other images, usually intimates or simpler images, that help tell the story of that place or that location. And they may even be one of your favorite images that you've captured, but they just aren't quite that banger. They're not that dramatic drone shot with a crazy sunset that's gonna blow up on Instagram. So you just don't do anything with them. So when I started doing these galleries, I started by setting a goal of, I want to capture 30 images. I want to have a total of 30 images in this gallery. And then once I have 30 images, I'll narrow it down to my favorite 25 and eliminate the 5 that I think are my least favorite. And doing this has helped me in a few different ways. First, it's given me a lot more time to revise and decide what the final look for certain images are. So instead of being in a rush to just post something really quickly on Instagram or get a new image up, or just throw it up into a gallery the second that it's post-processed, I've been waiting until the gallery is completed to release any of the images. So this gallery of fall color in Colorado, I started back in 2018 or 2019, I think. And some of the images in that gallery I've post-processed 5 or 6 times. The other thing that's really awesome is now all of those other images that normally just wouldn't get used at all, I would do nothing with, that I spent a lot of time capturing, I can slowly post-process those extra, smaller, less awesome, crazy drone shots and slowly add them to the gallery. And then at a later point in time, I can decide whether or not I actually think that image is good enough to be in the gallery, and I can either leave it in there or remove it. I've actually found that I prefer this method psychologically as well, because Instagram is just a rat race. You've probably noticed me just not posting much new images, just reposting old images, and that's been intentional. I've been intentionally holding new images back, waiting for that gallery to be completed before I release anything. I actually feel like I'm accomplishing more. And the reason for that is, instead of going on a 2-3 week trip and then coming back with my 5 best images and then getting them up really quick, instead I'm slowly post-processing 30 or 40 images from a trip and adding them to a gallery and slowly refining the gallery. And I feel like I'm making progress because I can see the total number of images in that gallery slowly going up as I add more and more images. And as new images become a little bit better, or I post-process them a little bit better, I see the gallery kind of becoming better over time. So the original idea for me for fall color in Colorado was to have a final gallery of 30 images reduced down to 25. Well, it didn't take very long before I had 30 images, and then I had 40 images, and I just didn't quite feel like I had the whole story yet. And then I had 50 images, and pretty soon I had 60 images, and then I had 75 images. And so right now I think I'm about 78 images total in the gallery. And so I don't know if I'm just OCD, but I just reached a point where I said, well, I'm at 75. I might as well go to 100. So knowing that I have about 75 images that are probably gonna end up in the final gallery, that means in order to meet my goal on this trip, I have to capture roughly 35-ish, 40 images. So fingers crossed, I'll have enough images to finally release the gallery this year. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think I'm nuts? Do you think this is a waste of time? What are your thoughts on that process? What do you do with those images that you like, but as standalone images, you just don't really know what to do with? Where you go on a trip, you photograph hundreds of these weird abstracts of mud or leaves or aspens or whatever it is, and then you don't really know what to do with them. Can anyone else relate to that? Is it just me? And what do you do with those images? Do you delete them over time? Do you let them just live on your hard drive? Does anyone else do the gallery method? Do you prefer that method? So let me know what you guys think. Now that we finally had good cloudy weather, I decided I wanted to try and get sunset back out at Dallas Divide, and then sunrise a little bit further towards the town of Array at Crystal Lake. There's a lake here along Million Dollar Highway that has really awesome glass reflections, so I'm hoping to shoot that first thing for sunrise. So we're here right now at a campsite not too far away from the lake. We're gonna spend the night here. I'm gonna get up for sunrise. I'm gonna go shoot the lake, and my hope is that it drops low enough in temperature tonight that we get some nice fog across the surface of the water tomorrow morning. That's really what I'm hoping to capture tomorrow morning for sunrise. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get that fog that I was hoping for, but instead what I did get was gale force winds from hell. And for probably the first hour, I could not get a single frame with anything in the reflection because the water was just so choppy. However, I waited it out, and probably an hour and a half or so after sunrise, I finally got just enough of the water to calm down to get a couple long exposures where you actually could see the reflection of the mountains in the water. Yesterday it was rain. Today it's extreme wind. So we ended up getting really choppy water for sunrise for most of the morning this morning on that lake. I was able to get a couple reflections here and there, and I think I have a couple images that were pretty usable. And then I ended up making my way over towards Dallas Divide again and shooting a couple areas there, and then slowly made my way towards Last Dollar Road, and I shot just a little bit of Last Dollar Road, and now we're back here in Telluride. So I wanted to get a last couple shots here in Telluride because the wind is starting to pick up and it's starting to just rip all of the leaves off of the trees. And so right now Telluride area is definitely at peak. The color is just really good here right now. So I wanted to get a few more images here before we went back over into the Array area, because that area this morning I noticed was pretty much kind of all dead and gone. There were a few patches here and there, but most of the leaves were pretty much gone from what I could see. So today is the day we are going to do Imogene Pass from Telluride into the town of Array. Now I've done Imogene Pass quite a few times in the past, so today will be interesting. I'm actually filming a video of the trail for the company I work for their YouTube channel, 4Runner Lifestyle. And hopefully this time we get to do the whole trail. Last year I filmed this video, we made it to the top, and there was just a ton of snow on the Array side. And I watched a couple people attempt to try and make it down and just get stuck and end up turning around. So this year, we're actually gonna do the whole trail from Telluride into Array. For those of you who are not familiar with Imogene Pass is a dirt road trail that connects the town of Telluride to the town of Array by going directly over the top of the mountain instead of all the way around like the highways do. So it's kind of a 4x4 trail. You could probably make it, you might be able to make it with just two-wheel drive, but it's definitely one of those trails you want high clearance, and you probably should have four-wheel drive in order to do it. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start Imogene Pass here in a few minutes and make it over into Array. Now this will be like my 6th time or 7th time, I can't remember anymore. I come out and I do Imogene Pass every year. I love Imogene Pass. It's one of my favorite roads in all of Colorado, so we're gonna go ahead and hit the trail. I am gonna air down just slightly because there's just a lot of rocks and I have a really stiff suspension right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and air down my tires just to make the ride up the mountain just a little bit more smooth. So on my 4Runner right now, I'm running KO2s, 265 7017s, and I have a lift on this. It's a 3-inch ARB Old Man Emu lift, so just a little bit of clearance. I'm gonna go ahead and air down right now. They should be at 40 PSI. Right now I have our 4Runner Lifestyle tire pressure gauge, so I'm just gonna make sure that we're at 40 or 38 or something PSI on these. and then we're gonna take it down to about 20. Right, perfect. So it looks like we're at 25 PSI, so all of these are good to go. We're gonna go ahead and hit the trail. So right here behind me, we're on the Telluride side. There's some switchbacks that are 1.5 lane. They're almost 2 lane, but they're not quite. And they're really kind of interesting steep switchbacks that have just a drop off on one side. So they're not technical or complicated or hard to achieve, but they can be a little bit nerve-wracking if you or one of your passengers is afraid of heights. So this is kind of what I'm talking about here, where it kind of squeezes down to a little bit more than a 1 lane road. There's a couple pullouts here where you can get out of the way for somebody if you need to. But for the most part, this is 1 lane just for this little section. And then once we get closer to Tomboy mine site, it'll open back up to 2 lane again. But this spot we're about to go through right here, you can see the watermarks coming down the side of the mountain. It was a lot of water. And so when I drove through it, it was actually splashing on the windshield. So I couldn't exactly see right where I was going. There's a little drop right here. So I can't quite see over the nose of the car. You drop down into this little ravine, and it's just sheer drop off to the right of us. So a little bit freaky, but not too bad if you've done it a couple times and if you can see properly. You guys might notice we're starting to get a few snow flurries here, so hopefully it doesn't snow on us while we're on this trail, but it doesn't look like it's going to be too bad. If it does, I think we'll be able to complete the trail even if it snows. Here's the next little section we're gonna go up. Here is the drop off that I'm talking about. And this is the section that we just came up. So if you walk over this way, you guys can kind of start to see why this could be a little bit freaky for some people. So this is probably 200-ish feet, something like that, maybe 100 and something feet. So not super scary, but again, if you're scared of heights, it could be a little bit freaky for you. So this is a really good spot to see Bretteville Falls. Bretteville Falls is right there on the right, so really awesome view if you have a second to pull over and stop here. And then immediately after that, here is that little tunnel hole in the rock thing that I was talking about that's really cool. There's also a really sheer drop off right here on the right. So if you're an adrenaline junkie, this is a really great place to come stand. It's basically a sheer drop off. I'm not sure how many feet, but it's definitely more than 200. Here's one of these structures that's carved right into the side of the mountain that I was talking about. Now there's a couple spots here where it's a little tight. These rocks get a little bit close, and you're kind of 1 lane here where you don't have a lot of room to really move around. So if you have a larger vehicle like a Tundra, this might be kind of a hard spot for you to get around without scratching something. So with me in a 4Runner short wheelbase, I've had no problems. I've never seen a Tundra up here. I've seen Tacomas, I've seen Jeeps, I've seen Land Cruisers, I've seen a lot of 4Runners up here. I'm sure it's probably doable in a Tundra, but there are just some spots where you might get some scratches. So we're coming up here on some more ruins, some more mining ruins, and these are just really crazy. So here on the right, there's actually a parking lot. If you wanted to, you could pull off there and you can go and inspect these mining ruins down here, right over there. So we stopped there last year, took a look at some of those mining ruins. We're just gonna keep going this year. All of these structures are very structurally unsound. You can tell just by looking at them, so I would strongly advise you stay away from them. You can just tell from looking at them, they could be very dangerous very quickly, but they are really cool to see right from your car, and you can pull over, take pictures, look at them here. You can actually walk right up to them basically. So just past those structures, there's actually an opening to a mine right here on the left. You can even see the mining carts left behind here. They still haven't been taken out. Now they have put a gate on the front of this so you can't get inside and it's locked, but really interesting. You can just see the opening to one of these mines here, right here at really crazy altitude. They were mining and walking back into this mine at some point in time. So we are here at the Tomboy mine, which is an abandoned mining site. I believe the sign said it started producing in 1894. So a really old mining site, not particularly my thing. I'm not super into mining sites, but this one does catch my attention because there's so much here and it's in such a crazy location. So This crazy road that we've come up to get here, apparently they had a daily stagecoach coming up to deliver mail, so just really impressive back in the 1890s, really insane. Okay, so we have made it to the summit of Imogene Pass, and there are some really crazy views here. It's really spectacular. It's basically panoramic, and it's just basically like sheer drop off on both sides. So really crazy place up here. Those switchbacks right there, they were a little bit freaky because there was some snow on them, so I was kind of slipping here and there. But was able to make it to the summit without any issue. And I was really hoping to get out and get some drone shots here. But you guys may have heard there are some gale force winds up here right now, so I don't think I'm going to be able to fly the drone. But the sign right here for Imogene Pass, it's right here to my left, it says elevation 13,114 feet. So that's how you know you've made it to the top of Imogene Pass. So from here, we make the switchbacks down towards Ray. Unfortunately, this time, just like the time before, the switchbacks on the Ray side were completely covered in snow. I did attempt to go down them this time, but ended up getting stuck 2 or 3 times. Didn't really film much of that, and when I finally just realized it really wasn't going to be possible to make it through on that side because of how much snow there was, I ended up turning around and going back down the way I came up again. This probably was the right decision because not long after that, I got hit with a pretty crazy snowstorm. That's when I made my way out to Dallas Divide for my last morning there of the trip.